Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good day. It's Thursday. It's time for our design reveal. And I am going to turn that light off and hope that you can still see me because it's shining too brightly in my eyes. So anyways, welcome to our week 34 design reveal. Today we're going to make a beaded chain. I decided to make it into a bracelet. We are going to use a clasp as our focal, and we're using yellow and pink beads as well as cube beads, square or cube beads in our design. I got back from Santa Fe yesterday, had a great time there. We went up for Indian Market, which is an annual thing. It's great. Like I talked about it a little bit last week, but yeah, you got to see a lot of great native culture. We got to see dancing, we got to hear storytellers, we got to see lots of art, everything from, paintings, clothing, dancing, pottery, jewelry, all the things that you would expect to see, but in even more. And people come from all over the place. You do get some native designers from Alaska. You get some people from Canada that come down. You even get a couple of South American people, I believe, we saw. But we fun time. And Santa Fe is always a fun place to visit. We went to Bandelier National Monument, which it's a nice place to hike. There's you can see a lot of old cliff dwellings there, where people carved out their houses in the cliff sides, and so took advantage of that for shelter. But there's also just beautiful outdoors, waterfalls, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, it was really warm when we were there, so we didn't take multiple hikes like we would have liked to, but we'll go back one of these days. So anyways, I recommend it if you're in the area. You may not want to go in August, quite warm, high 80s, low 90s the whole time we were there, and that's even at 7,000 feet, so it's a little surprising, but it's sad to say that it's, doesn't feel that much warmer back in Tucson here. We're warm here as usual, but I do want to say I ended up injuring my foot, so if I act a little out of it or seem a little uncomfortable, it's because I'm icing my foot. I am going this afternoon to have it looked at. One of those days, when you walking past a chair and you slam your foot into the leg of the chair, that's what I did. And unfortunately, my little toe was sticking out like that afterwards. So not a happy camper, but anyways, not in a lot of pain, but it's just uncomfortable. So anyways, if you're joining me, please let me know you're out there. If you're catching the replay, I'd love to know that too. We're gonna do a little something different today. I'm using we are making a beaded chain, but I'm kind of combining a couple of techniques. We're going to make kind of what is also called a leftover bracelet. So using small chunks of chain, connecting them together with some wire wrapped beads. So that's where my beaded chain is coming in. And then what I'm trying to do is at least add enough weight to the bracelet. We'll see if I'm successful. We may not be. So that my clasp, which actually I'm using a button, but I'm using a decorative button as my clasp, will become the focal and maybe pop up on the top of my wrist. But we'll see how that goes. Hey Lorraine, thanks for joining me. Hope you're having a good day. We're I was just talking a little bit about my trip to Santa Fe, but you'll have to catch the replay for that. But for now, let's go ahead and get started on our design. Let me go ahead and flip the camera over. And we will get started. So just a reminder, so we need to make a beaded chain. You know, when you draw this card, you can make just a chain if you want, or you can make it into something. Today I'm going to make it into a bracelet. A lot of times make it into a necklace, but you know, anything you want. I have to use yellow in my design, which is not one of my go-to colors. I think that's true for a lot of people, but we're working with it today. So I don't have a ton of yellow to choose from, but we're working it. Pink. And yellow and pink go together. So, and then I had to use square or cube beads. Now I don't have any yellow or pink. Well, I do have some pink cubes, but they didn't quite go with what I wanted. And then I have to make the clasp the focal point of my design. So since I drew this card, obviously my beaded chain has to be made into something. So we're making it into a bracelet here today. So I decided my clasp, I'm using this button. I bought this button at Scottsdale jeweler, what is it? Scottsdale Beads or something. But they have this old bronze stuff, and as far as I know, they're the only ones that sell it. They do make it, but they make these buttons. I thought they were kind of a fun design. So I'm going to work with that. I went ahead and tied my button with leather onto a ring. We'll show some of those ties some other days. I know I showed it a few weeks back, so I decided to go ahead and do it just to save a little time today. And I also did my loop that's going to go around the button. Again, I already tied it onto this, and I tied it onto this ring because what I want to do is basically we're going to build our beaded chain between these two pieces. So I've got some little clips of chain that I've, some of them I cut off of longer chains, others are leftover pieces from other projects, or I just happen to buy, you know, like a mix of chain from people, and sometimes there's little pieces in there. So anyways, this is a copper chain with little hearts, and then I've got a couple other designs here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sort of a multi-strand design. So right now I was planning on doing 3 strands. We'll see if that works out. You know, we may want to use something else, but I don't know why, but for some reason, you know, when we were at Indian Market, a lot of their outfits, their costumes for the performances are made, they're all beaded. Now, the guy was telling us that his costume, although his also had a lot of feathers and stuff on it, but it weighs 40 pounds, and their, you know, their whole front of their costumes and their footwear, everything is beaded with seed beads, and it takes something like 70 something hours to, or more, to make these costumes. But we noticed that a lot of them use fluorescent beads these days, and I think it's just so that, you know, everybody can see them. So anyways, I'm using some pink rondelles that are kind of a bright, kind of fluorescent-y pink. That's my pink requirement. I'm going to use these fluorescent yellows just because it's a fun pop of color. These are check beads that I bought at a bead shop, actually, in Santa Fe. And then I'm also using glass 3mm cubes, or just you know, a tube of cube beads. So that fills my requirement. These will kind of blend in with the chain. I've got a couple of different pieces of copper chain here, and I've got oh, and I also had these kind of hot pink, magenta, I'm not good with colors, fuchsia, maybe it's a fuchsia. Anyways, I'm going to use the 3 of those as part of my design. So how this leftover chain works is you take, you know, a small piece of chain. I've got some wire here, and I've got some jump rings. So because I'm using this loop, I did have to connect it to a jump ring, with a jump ring to the loop. But then what we want to do is connect some beads in there. I think, yeah, we'll just jump into the yellow here. So I'm just gonna put, you know, a cube just to extend it out a little. I could just do the single beads, but I'm gonna do 3 just because that's what I feel like doing today. So we're gonna do a wrap loop, and just hook it through. Now this particular chain has very small holes, so I am using a 22 gauge craft wire today, which does fit through that. A bigger gauge would not have fit through there. So I'm just gonna take that and wrap it. The craft wire is nice and easy to bend, so and can't forget to tuck our ends in. So that it doesn't get caught on things. So now I have to decide which chain I want to connect this to. I think my pliers are like never where I want them to be, but I am going to just that down, and we'll make the first part of our loop. And I'm not going to work all of it off this with all this dangling, but for the moment, just bear with me. Like I said, I'm a little out of it today because of my injured foot, so we'll see. So now I want to connect this to another piece of chain. You know, we'll do a short piece of chain. Now I could use more of the same chain, but I think I'm going to mix them a little bit, so I think maybe I'll use this Rollo chain, and we'll just connect a piece there. Hopefully this won't get too redundant as we're working on this. And then we just wrap that. Let's a little extra, not too much. Trim it off there, and that get bent. There we go. And then we'll tuck that in. Got it going in the hole, so. All right, so you know, I need to make sure I don't get this too long. So I think I'll use a short piece, and then I can connect another piece on there. This chain, even though it's not too thick, I'm going to use my memory wire cutters just because I don't want, it's a little thicker. All right, so I had the yellow on there, so maybe I'll just do the pink one on there. Let's see. Yeah, I never learned to keep my tools out of the way, so, so I've given up, actually. So we want to, you know, make our wrap loop. And then just, you know, go through the end of this chain. So, you know, making beaded chains is lots of wrap loops Now you could, if you wanted to, if you find it easier, you could make a bunch of little links and just connect them with jump rings. The only reason I don't recommend that is because, you know, if your design gets any pressure on it, your jump rings are a weak spot because they could stretch open, especially if you don't have thick jump rings, which sometimes you can't use really thick ones because they won't fit through the holes in your chain. Like this little tiny chain, I had to use a small one. But I'm going to show you how I'm going to kind of compensate for that weak spot. And I'm going to go ahead and I apologize if I'm going off screen. I'm trying not to. So, all right, so we've got, you know, our clasp. This goes out to about 5 inches. So, you know, a normal bracelet, I want this to be about 7. So I still need a little piece of chain in there. Maybe we'll use this one. Hey, Marianica, nice to see you. So I'm going to guess that this is about where I want my chain. And we'll check the length of this. So we're working on a bracelet today, using our beaded chain. And like I said, we'll call this a leftover. So if you have, you know, like pieces of chain that are left from a project, you know, because you shortened something or whatever, don't throw them away, because you can use them in this design like this to, you know, just add them between some wire wrapped beads and combine, you know, multiple chains into your design. So, all right, so since this, I'm using this 22 gauge wire, it's kind of floppy. So let's check this on my wrist. So I think, yeah, when I hook it onto here, that ought to be a good length. Now, because I have this chain and it doesn't open, I need to use a jump ring to connect it. I don't need a huge jump ring, but and this may end up being too long, but we'll adjust if we need to. So it can help when I drop it on my table here. So all right. So I'm going to connect this. You gotta open it far enough to get it on this bigger ring. And then once you have that, you can hook that on there, and so that's our first wrap. All right, so that may be maybe a little big, but I guess it might fit somebody else, but so for me, I mean, that's going to be floppy. I mean, it's not going to stay up, but we will continue. So I can certainly adjust it a little bit with these jump rings on both ends. So we'll work on that later. So next, I want to make another chain, using some of these other beads. So I think I'm going to wire wrap some of these beads directly to one of the ends here. So let's do that. Go ahead and we'll use the small ones that are on the opposite end. And by doing this, by wire wrapping a couple directly onto this ring, then I'm going to really, keep the pressure from being pulled on those jump rings that are there. So, because the wire wrapping can't come loose easily. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to wire that directly on there. You need to make that hole a little bigger. There we go. Not the best loop, but we'll get that straightened out. Now, I'm gonna pull my end around with these other pliers just so I can get that in there nice and tight. Right. And then I want to make a loop that we're going to connect to some chain here in a minute here. So let's take that off. All right, so let's think about our design here a little bit. So I don't want to put the same chain next to that one. So I could use this chain or use this other one that I haven't used yet. So maybe we'll do that. Go ahead and connect it to this. There's really no right or wrong with this design. It's just kind of intermixing these so that you have sort of a staggered look of where the chains are and where the beads are. So the holes in these cubes are pretty pretty big for the size of the bead, so it's giving me a little space where that falls in. Since I'm using craft wire, I don't need to save my pieces of wire. If I was using solid copper, it'd be worth saving all my little scraps of wire. All right, so we have a little bit of wire there. I can decide, do I want to start the next beads like maybe here, so it's offset with that a little. I think that works for me. Now I'm gonna cut at the smaller ring. I don't want to waste the large rings by cutting them. So all right, so now I think we're gonna, even though we already had the pink here, we're gonna put another pink there because it's our yellow. It's kind of in the center there. So I'm going to go ahead and put this big pink bead, I think. So, and like I said, I could just do the pink bead, but kind of liking these little cubes on both sides just to liven it up a little. Oops. And we're making our loop. And we put our loop on the chain here. it's hard to get that scooched up there, but well. All right, here we go. So connecting that one there. And we got to decide which chain we want to put on the other side of this one. So all right, so now I've got that chain. I think I may go ahead and put this heart chain on there, although, you know, I may wish I had another piece, which actually I do. I can make another piece. I have more chain sitting here. I just only cut the 2 pieces. Like I said, we're just winging this. The hardest part is, you know, since you're doing a multi-strand, is making sure that the 3 strands end up being about the same length. I think, you know, if I wasn't using the button and the leather, that I could be a little more exact. I think in the past I've always I either put it on a multi-strand clasp or put them all on a loop, but you know, just with a regular box or clasp of, or toggle or something that was a set length, you know. Sometimes the buttons are a little harder to deal with. Right? All right, so got that. So now I'm gonna want to put the yellow one there, I think, because we've got 2 pinks on there. It's sort of a repeat design, sort of not a repeat design. Like I said, we're just seeing how it goes today. I didn't really decide on my design early enough to dig out my my leftover bracelets that I've done before, but I'll try to remember to pull them out and show them to you on Sunday maybe. So again, we're, you know, just taking that through there. I could shorten that. I think it's fine. You know, we just have to decide how many strands you want on the bracelet. Part of it was I'm trying to make it a little weighty, but I don't think I'm doing a very good job because these beads in the chain are pretty light. So I don't know if my bracelet has any chance that it's actually going to sit correctly on my wrist, but maybe it'll sit correctly on somebody else's wrist. And if not, well, like I said, I can always shorten it. So, all right, this one is going to have to connect to something else. So I don't want to, you know, I don't want to put the same chains next to each other. I could either, it looks like I only need like maybe one maybe 1 or 2 loops. Maybe that doesn't fit. Too short really short piece of this one. Yeah, I'll just do that. All right, so let's go ahead and connect it to this. And we'll figure out how long our chain needs to be. So, sorry I'm not real talkative today. Like I said, I'm a little, still a little worn out from my drive yesterday. Driving from Santa Fe to Tucson is about 8 hours, so it's tiring. Now, we have some choices here. We can choose to use the same jump ring, or I can use a different jump ring. I think I'm going to use a different one, but go ahead and cut this. So I have a couple different styles of jump rings here. I always on jump rings use the heaviest or the thickest wire that'll work and looks right, because they will tend to hold up better, be stronger, and not come apart as easily. So and remember, you twist jump rings to the side and then you twist them back, and like I said, I kind of squeeze them toward each other, go back and forth a couple times to try to get that nice and tight. So there we have 2 of our strips. So let's lay this out and take a little look at it. So now I want to do a little bit of planning with the beads, bead placement. So I want, a yellow on this end, and I'm thinking another large pink one in the middle. I only have to use 2 if I want to, but I can do more. So, so I could put a third unit down here. So maybe I'll do that one directly to that loop. And then we sort of have a longish place we could put a chain. So I don't want to use that chain or that chain, but maybe I'll use this one because it's not clunky, right? Gonna open. And then we don't want either of those chains here, so maybe use this one. And then like I said, I do some more of this heart chain. Maybe we'll pull that out. Hey Ellen, thanks for joining me. So we're working on a little bracelet design here. So we're doing some wrapped loops, some beaded chain, and we're using some different pieces of chain for our design. And we're just winging it here, so. Hope you're having a great day. Yeah, I went for a little brighter colors today just to brighten up my day. Because it's been, like I said, rough day since I injured my foot. So I'm hoping these bright colors will make my day brighter. So. And yours. Times that stuff's a little slippery. There we go. All right. So what do you guys been working on? Anything this week? Any new designs? What's on people's workspaces this week? Or is everybody just keeping out of the way of everything that's going on in the world? Looks like most of you got through that last hurricane already. Okay, I saw there was another one this morning, but it looks like it's gonna miss out. We got caught in a monsoon yesterday on our way back. It was bad enough that we actually pulled off the side of the road, off a ramp, and sat and let it clear for a little while. It was coming down hard. So fortunately, the storms moved pretty quick through here, so we didn't have to wait too long. But that was a little scary. So you made an agate and copper necklace. Ooh. I was feeling the copper vibe today. I like to work with copper. All right, so as we lay this out, let's think about where we want to switch the chain up. So I can let it go. I think I'll let it go a little longer here and put that loop up here. Just kind of offset them a little bit. Oh, you missed me. So this bracelet, it's a single bracelet, but it's got multiple strands. We're making it a multi-strand design. Partly because I'm using this big button, and I want a little weight in the rest of the bracelet to kind of counteract this big button, and so that it looks kind of balanced. I'm trying to, it's very random and asymmetrical kind of, so it's not going to balance, but we're making this multi-strand design just to just as our decorative thing. So rather than just making a straight beaded chain, I decided to make multiple beaded chains, I guess, and we're mixing up the chain types in here as well. Yeah, I am making biggest mess on my workspace today, and actually if you saw my office, it wouldn't surprise you that my workspace is such a mess. Being gone, my space is a disaster right now. But as long as my little space here underneath my camera is available, we're good, right? you guys don't have to know how crazy the rest of it is. So. Okay, so we were going to, we were going to hook this chain on here, right? So, because our other two chains were not this one. And now we have to decide, you know, so I could just make it go all the way to the end there. Let's see, where is this? There we go. Now I will say one of these things with these multi-string bracelets like this, they do get twisted when you store them sometimes, if you're not careful. So I think I'll cut it there, and then we'll put some more beads to attach it directly on there. Let's see. So let's cut it here. Now, you know, you want these as close in length as to each other as they can be, but you know, it's okay if they're a little off, because then it just gives you a little more movement in your design, allows things to hang a little differently. Oh, I guess I didn't close that loop yet. Let's go ahead and do that before we start our new loop, huh? Try not to drag this on too long for you guys, but then I mess up when I go too quickly too. Let's see if I can get that. There we go. Sometimes I just have to fight these and kind of push that chain up gradually. I'm sure that there's a better way, but I kind of do what works for me. And I have to be careful. You know, these cubes are glass, so I don't want to squeeze my bead accidentally. Make sure I'm squeezing the wire and not the bead, because the bead will break. Right. Here we go. There. All right. Not beautiful, but it works. So, all right, now we are connecting our next one. Now, you know, I certainly could have used more colors, more types of chain, less types of chain. This design is really flexible. Oh, I have a cat hollering in the background. My cats were not happy that we were gone, so they're being very, very clingy today. I think my husband just left, and so now they think they've been abandoned. They don't realize that I'm still here. Cleo! We'll see if she comes to see me or not here. All right, so this design does take a little bit, but hopefully this will be the last one. Now, since I'm putting this on the loop, the big loop, it has to be a bigger round, so. So I want to make sure, well, I want to make sure I'm not overlapping these strands, although you could, if you wanted to do that on purpose, you could kind of braid them. That would be pretty too. I'm not going to do it that way today, but all right. Let's just twist that around. One went a little more smoothly. All right, let's trim that in. And like I said, now I could decide if I wanted to, you know, quite honestly, I can do as many strands as I want, but you know, that I tend to think like 3. You know, they often say you want to do odd numbers. That odd numbers are what appeals to the eye better. So if I was going to add more, I might want to add like 2 more, which I may still do. But anyways, that ends up being our, let's get all the tools and stuff out of the way here, because there's no reason why my workspace has to be as much of a mess. Leave the extra chain and stuff. So, all right, so there we have our, basically it's a leftover, like I said, you can use leftover pieces of chain. They can be any length that you want. I like to connect them all to a ring and then use the ring to connect to my clasp, but you don't have to do that. I could have also, since I have jump rings holding some of this chain on, I could have put them all on that same jump ring as well. And then, like I said, since I decided to use the button, it's a little more difficult to size it precisely. And if you guys want, we will demonstrate again the leather on another date. But anyways, that's what I call a leftover beaded chain. And like I said, if my chain and my beads are heavy enough, my clasp would end up on top. Now, you know, I'm considering this clasp my focal point just because it's just a fun button, but it's a little big, so I can tell you this button is heavy, so I'm going to end up showing this part of my wrist, this part of the bracelet. But anyways, there we go. We did follow the rules. That is our focal. And like I said, you know, I may end up adding a little more on there, but I won't make you guys watch me do the same thing repetitive over and over again. But it's a great way to, like I said, use, if if you only have like a couple of beads that don't match anything else, they're leftovers, that works really well with this design, as well as the leftover chain pieces. So it just adds a little character there. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed that idea, and you got to get my little fluorescent, I don't know, I was in a fluorescent mood, like I said, after seeing a lot of the dancers in their fluorescent beaded outfits. It just kind of made me want to do that, and like I said, brighten up the day. So I should be on regular time on Sunday. I don't have any reason that I will not be, that I'm aware of. And we'll be on for week 35. We'll be doing our drawing. As far as announcements, we are getting close to releasing the next deck, the Findings and Non-Jewelry deck. So hopefully you guys will have this a little fun. So what's different about this deck, you guys, thank you. You guys all know that I like making a little crystal critters. We have the bunnies, the turkeys, the turtles, and I am working on another one, first prize, but we'll see. I'm not sure how easy it'll be to get the parts, and kind of making the heads look right on some of these creatures is a little difficult sometimes. But anyways, non-jewelry. So, I used to always make jewelry. I'd get my beads out, I'd make earrings, I'd make bracelets, necklaces. My husband said to me one day, he's like, oh, how many days, how much jewelry do you actually need? And I was like, well, you're right. So I started making other things, so non-jewelry, think of things like keychains, mask chains, bookmarks. Bookmarks have been, a lot of people have been making those lately. We're giving up on Halloween. Everybody's going to be making the crystal, or the beaded spiders, and pumpkins and stuff. So all that stuff is what I call non-jewelry. So my, the deck that's coming out will have some things like that, like make a beaded sculpture, which would be, like a turtle or something like that. But it would also have things that you can do for gifts, like a plant stake, what else? An ornament. We made sun catchers with the sun and sea deck, things like that. But it's also, I decided to add findings in there. So all the used cards are findings. So you're being told to use a specific type of clasp, or you're being told to use jump rings, or a link, certain things like that. So those will all be in there. In some of the make cards, we're actually going to make our own findings. So we may make our own clasp, or we may make our own decorative head pins, or things like that. So those kind of things are in this deck. So I think there's only one challenge card, and that challenge card is just literally, making use multiple types of findings in your design. So there's no new like themes or that. So, but it'll be lots of use cards and lots of make cards, just to make things that are, like I said, a little different. They're not jewelry. Now that said, if you draw the make ear wires card, obviously you can make earrings out of it, and you have your jewelry. So I mean, the findings are meant to go into the jewelry, and you can make it. And it's kind of like drawing the beaded chain card. You can make whatever you want out of that finding. So, like if it says make a head pin, you can make a charm. You could just make the head pins. I demonstrated early on how we made those cat head pins, as well as the suns. So those are certainly things that go with that, and you can do things like that. So anyways, I will also be having some little packets of findings that are like a bunch of different kinds of clasps and stuff, just so that you have a selection that will go along with the deck, so that you're not, you know, say all you have is lobster clasp, and somebody says, you know, you draw the card that says use a toggle, you know, I want to make sure you have a toggle clasp. So there will be a bag of findings that'll be available to go along with the deck. Now, you don't have to buy it if you have plenty in your stash. That's fine. It's always, but I do offer you a deal or discount if you buy both. So I'm still waiting for some of my components for those to come in. So I will probably put the decks on sale after Labor Day. I should have my components in by then. I may do pre-sales. I have the cards. I've had the cards for a while, so the cards are fine. It's the stuff that I want to make available to you guys that go with them. So anyways, just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Since it's almost time for me to reshuffle my cards, I may shuffle my deck with the new deck in when I when I have to reshuffle my cards, just so you guys can start seeing some of those. But just want to make you aware, and like I said, those will be available. And you know, the other thought is that those non-jewelry items, a lot of them work for gifts for people. And so if we get them out and you guys start playing with them, it may give you some inspiration for Christmas gifts as you start working on those. As early as October. So anyways, so just wanted to give you a heads up on that and let you know what's coming. And like I said, I am working on some other crystal creatures. Need to talk to my crystal supplier and see what's available and whether we can work something out. And we'll have to see if I can add a little something to it to make it more holiday-ish, or if it's just for fun. So anyways, I may give you a sneak peek at what I've been working on, because I always promise you guys, if you tune into my channel, you sometimes get the sneak peek. So anyways, and as always, if there's like a critter you would like to see me try to make, I may have had some designs, because I haven't shared all of the ones that I've made. Let me know. Or if there's cards or things that you have troubles finding that I might be able to find for you, let me know that too. There are some fall shows coming up, wholesale shows in a couple weeks. So I haven't figured out what all I'm going to, and also if my foot is truly broken, which I think it is, I may not be able to walk around those shows as easily as I would like to, but we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and I will see you all on Sunday. And thanks again for joining me. I will be posting the final version of this project, and I will see you all on Sunday. Thanks again. Bye.